Okay, so doing something a little bit different. We got another project going on. So this is another homemade forklift. So you might remember about 2 years ago, I made one. And of course that's not going to be replaced. This is just like an addition to that one. So just wanted something a little bit heavier, a little bit stronger, a little bit more lifting capacity. So basically we got a forklift mast for the frame. The other section is out there that we're going to use. And then of course that's the forklift itself that we got for parts. We went there to get this forklift mast, which was all complete. It had 3 stages, has all the hydraulic cylinders and everything. We went there to get that for $400, and we asked about something else. And then he said, hey, I got the whole rest of the forklift. Do you want it? So next thing you know, we came home with the whole rest of the forklift for $400. So basically he just threw that in for free. And I'll show you that here in a minute. But rear axle, or I guess front axle, whatever you want to call it, because it runs backwards. Anyway, that differential, I guess we'll call it, is out of a John Deere F935 front mount mower. I picked that because it was nice and wide, and it's decently heavy duty. I still wish it was stronger than it is, but I guess it is what it is. Good 3.5 inch, probably round cast iron axle. And then we have this supported to right here, which will probably add another piece of angle iron on here going across just to help support that. And then you may or may not add something else attaching to down here for that, but we'll have to see if it needs it because it's holding all of this. So that's just would have to be supported because of the torque of the engine, but that's probably fine. We'll see. And then of course we got metal plates here welded on, and then that just attaches down here to the axle with 2 bolts on each side. We might add some kind of a triangle piece here, kind of like the shape of my hand, just to help support the axle. We are going to put some different tires on it. These hold 1,700 pounds apiece, and we want to be able to do more than 1,700 per tire. So we're going to see what we can find for better tires. And then I'm going to change out these rims for something that's a closer offset, just to move the tire as close to the frame as possible to get the stress off the axle. And then of course the front axle here is off a Simplicity Power Max garden tractor, which we welded these plates here on, and then that just sits underneath the frame. We do have to flip this up and over, which we'll have to do that with the telehandler because my forklift doesn't lift up 8 feet high. And then of course that has some metal here that's kind of turns the corner, and that's welded on here with the spindles. This part here is going to have to come off and just put a spacer there. And then this piece here that's kind of an angle, we're going to attach a piece of angle iron on that. I'll show you here. We're going to do something like this. Of course I have 2 of them. I'm going to attach something like that. And then that'll be where the tie rod attaches. And then somewhere probably along here, or maybe even going this way, will be the steering cylinder, but we'll have to see. And then of course drive shaft coming back from here. And then the engine, it's still not 100% certain what we're going to use for the engine just yet. We do have other back tires on order that are similar to this one here, where they're 18 858s, something a little bit fatter than these, so it doesn't sink into the ground with all that counterweight we're going to have in the back. So of course, forklift itself, this they just threw in for free, which is funny. So basically he said the engine blew up. But yeah, we don't really have plans for this, but we are going to take some metal off of it, like the metal for the wraps. And then I do want a few parts off it, like there's an alternator down there and exhaust, radiator, all that stuff wouldn't mind having. We took the axle off it already because we were going to use this, but we couldn't quite find tires that fit this, and this axle is just kind of big. So we decided not to and just use that other one. Do have the side shift piece. Of course we've taken the seat hood assembly off. And then over here is the mast, so we got the hydraulic cylinder. So my other one had an electric winch at first, and then a couple months ago I changed that out for a really long hydraulic cylinder that goes all the way to the top. So this one, we're gonna have the proper cylinder, and kind of, you know, has the chains that loops around. The plate where the forks attach is a good 48 inches wide compared to mine that's like barely 30 wide. And then of course here's the other part of the mast. This had been the outside most section of the 3-stage. And then there's the 2 lift cylinders for that are good, probably 6 feet long. And then this mast is quite tall. It's probably going to lift a good 5 feet in the air. So I think now that I explained everything and went through everything, I'm going to shut this camera off. I'm going to do some more work on this and then come back and see what we get done. So I thought I'd give you an update. So I made some progress on the axle. Of course, got this tie rod attached. I took those pieces off the top, which is where this tie rod originally attached, but that can't be up there because, of course, this frame's in the way. So welded on these pieces of angle iron there, drilled some holes in there, so that's nice and sturdy. So you spin one tire, they both will turn. From here, I'll get my yellow forklift in here, lift this outside. My dad's going to get the telehandler right now, and we're going to hook a chain around here and lift this up, so then underneath right here can be welded better, because you can't really weld upside down that well. So I'm going to do that, and then that axle is done. And then of course I need to hook up power steering cylinder, and I actually have everything already for power steering, some decent used stuff. So we'll start working on that. Otherwise it might be mounting the engine next, which I'm working on taking out of that John Deere 318, which will be a Predator 420 with a flywheel adapter. Really wanted something bigger, but we're gonna just use that for now and just see if it's enough. My yellow forklift has a 390, a Honda 390 in it, so that's fine. So if this is a little bit bigger engine, then it should be fine also, I hope. So another update on it. So of course, axle is welded in place. We've got the tie rod or axle cylinder attached. Let's just weld it in the middle here, and then that goes on to an angle iron attaching to the spindle there. Engine is mounted for the most part. Got a drive shaft going to the transmission. Hydraulic pump is going to mount back here someplace. It's down there. And then that'll just have a belt drive pump, just so then that way, depending on fork speed or anything like that, if you need to change the speed or anything, you just change the pulleys. It goes faster or slower. And then working on the steering right now. So this is what we got so far for the steering column. Then we're working on getting this attached to this part here, the steering column. And then we can start hooking up the hoses going to the power steering valve. And then to be able to put oil in the transmission and see if it moves. So made a bunch of progress on it. It does actually run and drive at this point. So I was mentioning before, got the steering column actually mounted to that middle part, mounted to the frame. And then of course all the lines go back to the cylinder for the rear axle. We got some kind of fancy heavy duty trailer tires for the back. Had to pretty much special order these. They're 5-lug. They hold like just over 1,100 pounds a piece. And we're going to put like a 1,500 pound or more concrete block on the back of this. And then of course the engine is mounted. So it just has 2 pieces of angled metal welded to the frame with a notch out of the side. The engine's attached to that. We got, of course, the flywheel adapter, drive shaft that I had from the mower this rear end came from. That was cut and then welded to extend it. Brake pedals are just very simple, just tube steel that you just press on and it pushes the brake. So I'm gonna at least hook one up to some kind of a lever for a parking brake, and then possibly hook something up to press this down, which is the hydro release, so you can push the machine, which also act as like the neutral, because this thing kind of wants to creep forward or backwards. This is the shifter for forward and reverse. You just kind of move it like that, and then there'll be a gas pedal down there. The reason for not having like a hydrostatic forward and reverse pedal is this transmission really wants to just kind of have a mind of its own, where normally this lever, if you let go of it with it running, it just returns the neutral kind of like with a spring, like internally. This one, if you just let go of this input on the transmission, it just kind of has a mind of its own and just kind of goes back and forth, forward and reverse. You can't really control it. So the easiest thing we came up with was just to have a lever for the forward and reverse, and then we'll have a gas pedal, and then maybe something that will push on these 2 valves here and kind of make a neutral so it doesn't want to drive away. Other than, of course, the parking brake. And of course, parking brake's going to just pull on this lever. Probably just one side would be all it needs, because these brakes work pretty good. And then forward and reverse linkage, we've got basically two big washers here with a piece of rubber in between and a spring. That kind of acts as like a brake just to create friction. And then we have a 3/4 inch rod going from that side over to here. A piece of metal welded on that with a like a tie rod end. And then the same thing over here, and that's going up to what was a throttle control, but it's now a forward and reverse lever. And then that has the same thing, a washer with a piece of rubber on it to create friction. And then of course we got kind of the hood seat support thing made. So the next here is to figure out some hydraulic stuff for the forks, get the mast attached, which I did get a 240 volt welder. I just gotta get the outlet and stuff for that, and then we can weld that on there, just because that metal is quite thick and it's gonna hold a lot of weight. So there'll be more coming in the next video. That's gonna be it for this one. And thanks for watching, and more coming soon.